There is a lot happening in the world right now, but I want to make sure that stories like this don't get lost amongst the noise. So, Amazon is shutting down all of its facilities in Quebec, leading to 1,700 permanent employees losing their jobs. Now, Amazon is insisting it's not because of the new union. No, it just so happens the only place where we are unionized, we're shutting down, but it's not because of that. So, I'm going to get to what they're claiming it is. My opinion is different, but CBC goes on to write here Quebec is home to Amazon's only unionized workforce in Canada. Workers in Laval unionized last year, saying they were dissatisfied with what they described as a hectic work pace, low wages, and inadequate health and safety measures. So, Amazon is, or I should say, the spokesperson for Amazon insisted that the decision was tied to cost savings, not the recent unionization of about 300 employees at a Laval, Quebec warehouse. Well, we found that returning to a third party delivery model supported by local small businesses, Amazon cares a lot about those small businesses, similar to the one we had until 2020, will enable us to offer the same excellent service and deliver even greater savings to our customers in the long term. Well, then why not just do that everywhere? Why is it only this place you're doing that? So I'm going to get to why they are so adamant about this, or why they are insisting it's not because of the union. Because you'd think, why don't they just own it and say, yeah, it's because of the union we're leaving. There's a reason for that in Quebec. I will get to that. But this, as written by the Montreal Gazette here, the axis falling at the same time relations are tense with unionized employees at Amazon's Laval warehouse. The company had opposed the union's accreditation, but lost last October before the province's labor tribunal, the Tribunal Administrative, or I should say, the Tribunal Administratif du Travail. So this is the reason. As Steph, at least this is what I believe the reason is. Obviously, I don't know, but this is what it appears the reason is to me. Stephanie Ross, who is a labor studies professor at McMaster University, writes, "You're outrageous, but not in the least surprising. When Walmart did this in Jonquière in response to a successful union drive, the Supreme Court of Canada found they violated the Quebec Labor Code. This is why I think Amazon wants to insist that this is not about the union because they are afraid of this sort of action being taken against them. This story back in 2014, Quebec unionized Walmart workers win Supreme Court victory. Walmart to review top court's decision that Jonquière store closure violated Quebec labor code. So I note the date here because it took about 9 years for this ruling to come down. So the Walmart employees became the first in North America to be unionized when they joined the union in 2004. And then the store was closed down in April 2005, putting approximately 190 employees out of work. And it wasn't until 2014 that the ruling came down. So there needs to be some stronger labor code here. And this gets to what I'm going to discuss later on or at the end of this video as it applies to one of the reactions from one of the workers, the Amazon workers in Quebec. But I just want to share this from Jen Hassam, writing here Amazon would rather close than have their employees earn a decent wage. This is where the anger should be directed. So I want to highlight this. I'm not going to highlight this person's name because they don't need the attention. But this person says, I was a driver, now I'm a supervisor. Now they're going to erase everything from me. He blamed the union for the closure. He said Amazon had been very unhappy about the unionization efforts, and he said he didn't see the need for a union. His salary, he said, was over $23 per hour. Quote, I don't think this job needs to get unionized, he said. Amazon is really not happy with the union. I don't know. It's so sad. Now, I understand the reaction. He sees, hey, everything was fine until this union came along, and now I lost my job. I understand that reaction. But this is something that we have to really address in the sense that we have to understand where to put our focus, our anger, our effort. Is it the fault of workers demanding they have a voice in the workplace? Or is it the fault of a massive, profitable company not wanting their workers to have any say in the workplace? This isn't the fault of the union. This is the fault of the company. So, look, again, this is not an attack on this individual employee here, but it's an attack on this entire idea of where we put the blame. The same thing happens when workers go on strike. The way that headlines are written, the whole media environment around labor versus corporations. It's always, oh, people aren't getting the mail because these people are on strike. Or people aren't getting the mail because there isn't a fair deal that is being offered by the other side. All discussions around labor disputes are always on the side of the employer as opposed to the employee. And you could put that blame largely on the fact that a lot of media is captured by massive corporations. They're run by massive corporations. They have certain capitalist interests. So that is it sort of inherently going to be in the way that these issues are tackled. It's in the schooling as well. People go to school to, learn journalism, and this is the way they're taught to discuss things. It's never from the worker's perspective. We need to really address and analyze that. Like when you see stories like this and you read a story like this or you see one on TV, sit for a second and think about the framing. It's not that the content of what a lot of this reporting is doing is wrong. It's the framing around it. How it inherently makes you feel based on where they're putting the onus. This gets to the context here that is incredibly important when it comes to this. Because if it was the union's fault, then why is Amazon operating in countries like France, Italy, Spain, and Germany, where union membership is far more widespread and barriers to entry are substantially lower? Amazon workers are unionized there. This clearly is not the fault of the union when Amazon can operate in other countries where they're abiding by stricter labor code. So the Seattle Times goes on to write here the presence of robust unions in Amazon's international workforce hasn't stopped the company from expanding into countries that it sees as lucrative new markets. In many European countries, Amazon workers are covered by collective bargaining agreements that apply to whole sectors of the economy, meaning that Amazon has to meet certain minimum standards that apply to all e commerce companies or all retailers. Why is Amazon able to abide by those rules and appear to operate fine, still turn a profit? But when it applies to US locations, Canadian locations, they are more eager to fight. That's because the labor code is less on their side. In many of these European countries, they have no choice. So, government protections are definitely a part of it, or I should say, lack of government protections around labor is definitely an aspect of this. But this is all to say, don't blame workers organizing for any of these companies shutting down. If we all imagine if every Amazon location in Canada worked to form a union, what's Amazon going to do? Pull out of Canada completely? Really? They're going to be forced to work under the conditions that they are in. They're going to be forced to operate and maybe turn a little less of a profit. Maybe give Jeff Bezos a little, maybe 1 billion, a couple billion less for these workers to earn better wages, better benefits, better hours. But this idea that we should be focused on the actions or we should be angered by the actions of labor is, of course, insane if you understand the context of how these massive companies are able to operate in other countries. The only power that the working class has is collective power. That's the only power they have against massive companies and concentrated wealth at the top, where these people, their entire aim is to dominate and generate more and more and more wealth for themselves.